The moment the world stopped breathing, the theater was packed. The lights dimmed. Cameras flashed from every angle. It was the biggest night of Ana de Armas's life. Her name had just been called. The crowd stood, clapping as she walked toward the stage. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a little girl in Cuba. The gold-trimmed curtains behind her swayed slightly as the host moved aside. But something was wrong. Very wrong. Keanu Reeves was sitting in the front row. He had presented the award. He had spoken kindly about her, with his usual calm voice. Now he watched closely. Something in Ana's expression had changed. Her smile faltered. Her steps slowed. Her hand clutched her stomach. Her eyes widened. Then, she froze. At first, people thought it was part of her speech. Maybe she was building suspense. Maybe she was trying to hold back tears. But then she staggered sideways. Her hand reached out. Empty air. No words came out. The microphone remained untouched. Ana de Armas wasn't acting. She couldn't breathe. A gasp rippled through the room. Some people stood. Others stayed glued to their seats, confused, unsure what to do. The host stepped forward slightly, but hesitated. There were security protocols, medics backstage, but they hadn't moved yet. They were waiting for a signal. That signal never came, because someone else moved first. Keanu Reeves stood up slowly, not in panic, not in chaos, but with a calm that somehow cut through the noise and confusion. His eyes never left Ana. He walked to the edge of the stage. Then he stepped up beside her. No one tried to stop him. He gently touched her shoulder and spoke just loud enough for her to hear. "You're safe. Just breathe. I'm here." Ana's knees buckled, and Keanu caught her before she fell. He didn't lift her dramatically. Instead, he crouched beside her and helped her sit on the stage floor. He held her hand. He asked again, softer now. "Can you hear me?" She nodded, just barely. Tears spilled from her eyes. Her chest moved fast, too fast, like she was drowning in air. Her breath hitched and caught. She looked embarrassed, ashamed, like she had ruined the biggest moment of her career. "Close your eyes for a second," Keanu said gently. "Imagine something peaceful. The beach, the breeze, no cameras, just you and the ocean." Ana tried. Slowly, shakily, her body began to calm. Backstage medics rushed forward, finally given clearance to help. But she didn't let go of Keanu's hand. Not even when the oxygen mask was brought. Not even when she could breathe again. The room was silent. No one clapped. No one moved. Something sacred had just happened, and everyone had felt it. One actress in the back whispered, "He didn't make it about himself. He made it about her." And that was exactly it. Keanu didn't pose for photos. He didn't wave to the crowd. He stayed on the stage floor until Ana whispered, "I'm okay now." And even then, he nodded once and quietly stepped back into the shadow. The host tried to continue the ceremony, but the magic of the night had shifted. What no one knew yet, what would later be studied in classrooms and psychology courses, was how deeply his actions impacted not just Ana, but everyone who witnessed it. A single moment of kindness, humility, and grace had melted the glamour and shown something real. Raw. Human. Earlier that day, Keanu had almost skipped the event. He had been filming for days with little sleep. His manager had urged him to rest, but Keanu felt something tugging at him, a sense that tonight mattered. Not for fame, not for awards, but for someone else. He didn't know it would be Ana. Didn't know she had been silently struggling with anxiety for months. The weight of expectations, the sudden spotlight, the voices telling her she wasn't good enough. No one could see the invisible battle she fought. No one. Except Keanu. Backstage, Ana sat on a small stool, eyes still wet, breathing slow and shallow. She looked up at him, her voice still shaking. "Why did you come up? Why? You could have just waited." He smiled, soft and sincere. "Because I've been there. Not on a stage, but in that silence, when everything inside is screaming and you don't know who to reach for." She looked at him, stunned. "You helped me more than you know," she whispered. "You helped yourself," he said. "I just reminded you how strong you already are." And in that moment, Anna realized this wasn't the end of her story. This was the beginning. The media would call it a graceful intervention. Articles would go viral with headlines like "Keanu Reeves, hero in silence," and "How a quiet moment on stage changed everything." Psychologists would analyze the interaction. They would note how Keanu's presence calmed her nervous system, how his nonverbal cues created safety, how empathy, when practiced at the right moment, could rewrite trauma. But for Anna, it wasn't about the science. It was about a man who didn't let her fall, a man who showed the world that the most powerful thing you can do is care. Behind the curtains of silence, the theater slowly returned to motion. But something in the air had changed. After Anna was gently helped backstage and Keanu disappeared from the spotlight, everyone in the room was left holding something invisible, a kind of quiet reflection they hadn't expected to find at an award show. It wasn't about speeches or trophies anymore. It was about humanity, and it had arrived without warning, carried in the calm voice of a man who simply refused to let someone fall alone. Behind the curtain, Anna sat wrapped in a blanket. Her makeup had smudged from tears. Her hands still trembled slightly. The medical team had checked her heart rate, her blood pressure, everything. Physically, she was fine. But inside, a storm was still passing through. She looked up when Keanu entered. He wasn't followed by a camera crew. He wasn't wearing his usual smile for fans. He just brought a small paper cup of warm tea. "Chamomile," he said softly. "They had some backstage?" Anna managed a weak smile. "Thank you." He sat beside her, not too close, and looked straight ahead, giving her space to breathe. "I wasn't sure if you wanted me to stay." "I do," she said quickly. Then she looked down. "I mean, if you don't mind." "I don't mind." There was a long pause, but it wasn't awkward. It was calm. The kind of silence that lets pain breathe instead of choking it. "I didn't think this would happen," Anna whispered. "I practiced my speech so many times. I told myself I was ready." "It's not about preparation," Keanu said. "It's about pressure." She looked at him, curious. "I know what it's like to feel like you're being watched by the whole world," he continued. "To feel like if you take one wrong step, everyone will see, they'll judge, and it stays with you even when you leave the stage." Anna's throat tightened. "How do you deal with it?" Keanu thought for a moment. Then he said something simple, something that stayed with her forever. "You stop trying to be perfect, and you start trying to be present." Outside, the internet exploded. Fans were already cutting clips from the broadcast. Headlines started popping up online. "Ana de Armas suffers breakdown, saved by Keanu Reeves." A masterclass in emotional support, what Keanu did. The night humanity stole the show. Some of the press tried to sensationalize it, calling it a meltdown or a scene. But most people weren't buying it. They saw something honest, something rare. A woman struggling to breathe under years of pressure, and a man who made no show of helping. He just helped. Comments flooded social media. "I've never cried watching an award show before. Can we just talk about how Keanu didn't make it about himself? This is what true support looks like." But Anna didn't read the comments. Not yet. She was still processing what had happened inside her own body, her own mind. For years, she had carried the fear quietly, the panic that she wasn't good enough, that someone would one day look her in the eye and say, "You don't belong here." But Keanu had looked her in the eye and said the opposite, without even using those words. The next morning, Anna didn't wake up to celebration. She woke up to silence. She stared at the ceiling in her hotel room, the events of the night before playing back like a slow-motion dream. The way her throat closed. The way the applause turned to confusion. The way Keanu's voice had cut through it all like a lighthouse in a storm. A knock on the door startled her. It was a delivery. A small white box. No name, she opened it carefully. Inside was a folded note and a hardcover book. The note said, "You don't need to read it all at once. Just a few pages every morning helped me." The book was titled, "The Body Keeps the Score." She recognized it. It was about trauma, healing, and how the body stores pain long after the mind forgets. Anna pressed her fingers to the cover. She didn't cry. She just sat very still, letting the kindness wash over her like sunlight through a cold window. Later, that day, she went for a walk. She wore a cap and sunglasses, but people still noticed her. Yet no one came rushing. They smiled, nodded. Some waved gently. She felt something different in their stares. Not the usual celebrity curiosity. Not the pressure to perform. Something else. Something closer to understanding. She stepped into a quiet cafe, took a corner table, ordered a small black coffee. Then, her phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. "Look outside." She turned. Across the street, standing under a tree, was Keanu. He wasn't waving, just waiting. Calm as always. She grabbed her coffee and walked over. "I thought you were on a plane by now," she said. "Flight's later," he replied. "Just thought you might want to talk." "I do." They sat on a bench. 2 actors. No cameras, no lines. Just truth between them. Anna looked at him carefully. "Why do you do this?" "Do what? Help people when no one's watching." He paused, then said, "Because I know how it feels when no one does." Keanu shared things that afternoon he rarely told anyone, about his childhood. The loneliness. How he lost people he loved. How fame didn't fix emptiness. How he had learned to build, piece by piece, through small acts, deep breaths, and kindness that never asked for attention. Anna listened like a student to a teacher. But it didn't feel like a lecture. It felt like a hand being held out in the dark. "You weren't weak last night," Keanu said quietly. "You were brave enough to break in front of the world." Her lips trembled. "And that," he said, "takes more strength than any award." That night, Anna returned to her hotel. She sat by the window and opened the book Keanu gave her. The first page she flipped to read, "Trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you." She took a deep breath. Then she whispered aloud, "I'm going to be okay." For the first time in a long time, she believed it. Healing begins in whispers. Days passed, but the world didn't move on. Every news outlet kept playing that same moment. Ana de Armas standing frozen on stage, then Keanu Reeves stepping forward with quiet strength. But something unusual happened. This time, instead of gossip or scandal, the world responded with compassion. Students in psychology classes watched it during lectures. Therapists wrote blog posts about emotional regulation, body language, and human connection. Schools added clips of it in emotional intelligence modules. It became more than a viral moment. It became a case study in empathy. But for Anna, none of that mattered as much as one simple thing. She could finally breathe again. Anna didn't run away from the spotlight. Not this time. She returned to work slowly, carefully. Film meetings were rescheduled, but not cancelled. She insisted on keeping her commitments. And though she still felt nervous walking into public spaces, something had shifted inside her. The fear was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She also changed one habit. Before every event or meeting, she took a moment to ground herself. She would sit in silence, close her eyes, and picture a calm sea, just like Keanu had told her, and she would whisper, "I am safe." One afternoon, Anna received an email from a small university in Canada. The message said, "Dear Miss de Armas, we're writing on behalf of our psychology department. This semester, we are using the video of your recent award night as a central discussion topic in our course, empathy in action. Our students have learned more from that single moment than from any textbook. We'd be honored if you could join a live video session with our class. Not as an actress, not as a guest of fame, but simply as the person who reminded us that vulnerability can be strength." With respect, Professor Claire Maxwellana read the email 3 times. Her hands trembled, not out of fear, but from something new. Purpose. She replied, "Yes." On the morning of the session, Anna felt that same old tightness in her chest, but this time she didn't hide from it. She acknowledged it. She sat still, eyes closed, and whispered, "I'm safe. I don't need to be perfect, just honest." When she joined the session, her camera clicked on, and over 24 students appeared on the screen. Faces lit up, smiling, respectful. Anna smiled gently. "Hello?" One student raised her hand immediately. "Miss Anna, thank you for saying yes. Can I ask you something personal?" Anna nodded. "Of course." What was going through your mind? In that moment on stage, Anna took a breath. Honestly, nothing clear. It felt like the world was pressing down on my chest. My mind knew I was fine, but my body didn't believe it. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move, another student asked. And when Mr. Reeves came forward, Anna smiled softly. It felt like the pressure lifted. Not all at once, but enough for me to breathe again. He didn't try to fix me. He didn't speak big words. He just stayed with me. Sometimes, that's enough. One boy leaned forward on his desk. How do we help someone like that, when they're overwhelmed? Anna's eyes glistened. Be present, be quiet, be kind. Sometimes it's not about what you say. It's about what you don't say. The students nodded, taking notes, hearts full. And for the first time in her life, Anna realized her pain had turned into purpose. That evening, Anna received a text from Keanu. "Heard about the class. Proud of you," she replied. "It helped more than I expected." Then she paused and added, "Thank you again. Not just for that night, for showing me how to live with it after." He replied moments later, "You showed yourself. I just reminded you of who you are." The days continued, and so did the ripple. People began sharing their own stories under the hashtag The Keanu Moment. A man posted a photo of his daughter at her school talent show. She had frozen mid-performance. No one laughed. Instead, her teacher walked to the stage and held her hand until she finished. A nurse wrote about helping an elderly woman through a panic attack, not with medication, but with presence. Someone else posted a sketch. Anna sitting on the stage floor, Keanu kneeling beside her. Above them were only 4 words, "You are not alone." Anna cried quietly when she saw it, not out of sadness, but because healing had begun to echo beyond her. A month later, Anna walked into a quiet recording studio, not for a movie, for a podcast. She had agreed to speak with a young therapist named Lara, whose mental health podcast had been gaining attention for its honesty and warmth. The episode title was simple. When I Couldn't Breathe. They sat facing each other. Just 2 women, no scripts, no pressure. Lara asked, "Anna, what do you wish someone had told you before that night?" Anna didn't hesitate. That it's okay to break. That your value isn't in how well you perform, but in how true you are to yourself. Lara nodded. "Do you think more people struggle silently than we realize?" Anna answered. I think most people carry invisible weight. And sometimes, one quiet hand on your shoulder can carry half of it away. By the end of the podcast, the two women hugged. The recording went viral, not because of drama, but because of something real, something everyone recognized deep down, the desperate need to be understood. Keanu never took credit. When asked in an interview about the incident, he simply said, "I just did what anyone should do." But people knew better. He wasn't just a celebrity. He was a quiet force reminding the world that strength is not loud, it's gentle, and kindness, when practiced at the right moment, can echo louder than any applause. Anna went on to finish her film. The premiere came with nerves, as expected. The red carpet, the flashing lights, the questions from journalists. But this time, Anna didn't hide behind rehearsed lines. A reporter asked, "Anna, are you afraid of the stage now?" She looked into the camera, smiled warmly and said, "I respect the stage, but I no longer fear it." Then she walked into the theater, head high, heart full. When silence becomes strength, Ana de Armas stood under the dim glow of the theater lobby lights. The night of her movie premiere had ended. The crowd had left. The cameras were gone. But she remained, still in her dress, heels in hand, eyes searching, the empty walls like they held pieces of her story. So much had changed since that night on stage. The moment that nearly broke her had become the very moment that rebuilt her. What most people didn't know was that Anna had started keeping a journal. She wrote in it every day, even if it was just a line or two. Sometimes she scribbled thoughts, like, "I'm proud of how far I've come." Other times, the pages stayed mostly blank, except for a quiet, "Today was hard." But one entry stood out. "I used to think strength was never falling. Now I know it's standing back up even when your knees shake." After the podcast with Lara went viral, Anna began receiving letters, not emails, handwritten letters, from teenagers, from single mothers, from men in prisons, from teachers, from soldiers, all saying the same thing in different words. "Thank you for showing us that it's okay to break. Thank you for showing us how to breathe again." One letter came from a girl named Emily in Ohio. She wrote, "I have panic attacks almost every day. I used to think it made me weak. But when I saw you on that stage, and I saw how Keanu held your hand without judgment, something changed. Now, when I feel it coming, I say to myself, just breathe. You're not alone. Thank you for saving my life without even knowing me." Anna cried when she read that one. She wrote back, handwritten, and she ended it with, "You didn't need saving. You just needed to be reminded. You're already strong." A few weeks later, Anna received a quiet call from Keanu. He never called just to chat. When his name appeared on the screen, she knew it wasn't casual. "Hey," she answered, already. Smiling. "Hey," he said back, voice soft as ever. "I need a favor." Anna straightened in her chair. "Of course. Anything." Keanu hesitated for a second, then said, "I'm speaking at a private mental health gathering. It's not public, no cameras, just people trying to understand pain and healing. I think they'd love to hear from you too." Anna's throat went dry. Speak. Not as a character, not with a script, as herself. She wanted to say yes, but the fear crept in again, quiet but sharp. "I don't know if I'm ready," Keanu paused, then said, "You don't have to be ready, just be real." The night of the event arrived. It was held in a small, warm-lit community space. No red carpet, no flashing lights. Just a room of 50 people, counselors, survivors, advocates, and those still finding their way out of pain. Anna stood backstage, heart pounding. She looked down at her hands and noticed they were shaking slightly. Then she heard a voice behind her. "You're not alone." She turned. Keanu stood there, wearing a simple shirt and jeans, No makeup, no fanfare. You came, she whispered. I never left, he said with a half smile. He took her hand, not in a dramatic gesture, but just enough to remind her she was supported. Ready? He asked. Anna nodded. Not because the fear was gone, but because she had learned to walk with it. They walked onto the small platform together. The audience leaned in, not out of excitement, but out of care. Keanu spoke first, sharing stories of his early struggles, the people he'd lost, the moments that nearly broke him. Then it was Anna's turn. She stood still for a long second. Then she said, I froze on stage that night, not because I was weak, but because I was overwhelmed by everything I hadn't allowed myself to feel. The room was silent. I thought I would be remembered as the girl who fell apart in front of the world. But now I realize that fall wasn't the end. It was the beginning. She told them about the tightness in her chest, about the invisible pressure, about the way Keanu's calm presence anchored her. And then she said something that would echo for years. The most powerful thing someone can say to you in a moment of fear is not, you'll be fine. It's, I'm here. People wiped their eyes. Some held hands. Others nodded slowly, as if hearing their own stories retold. Anna finished her talk with one final line. We all have a moment when we can't breathe. What matters is, who's there to remind us we can? After the talk, people gathered to speak. With them. Not for autographs, not for selfies, but for connection. A young man told Keanu, My brother took his own life last year. If someone had stayed with him like you did, maybe things would be different. Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. You're staying now, that matters. A mother told Anna, My daughter has anxiety. She watched your video on repeat. She thinks you're a superhero. Anna smiled, eyes wet. Then I'll keep showing her it's okay to have hard days. As they left the venue that night, Anna and Keanu walked together under the moonlight. I was terrified, Anna admitted. Me too, Keanu said. Every time I speak about pain, it comes back a little, but it also leaves a little more. They stopped on the sidewalk. I used to think fame made me powerful, Anna said. But now I know. It's presence. It's being there when it counts. Keanu nodded. The world needs less noise and more presence. They stood there in silence, letting the night breathe. Two people who had learned that healing didn't come in loud applause, but in quiet understanding. A light in quiet rooms, the morning after the mental health event, Anna woke up before the sun. The city was still asleep, wrapped in its own silence. She sat on the windowsill of her small apartment, coffee in her hand, barefoot, no makeup. She stared at the sky turning soft blue, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the kind of peace that came from applause or awards. This peace was different. It came from truth. From knowing she had finally stood in a room and told her story, not as a performance, but as herself. In the stillness, her phone buzzed. A single message from Keanu. You were brilliant last night. Thank you for being real. Anna smiled and replied, Thank you for giving me the courage. Then, after a moment, she added, I want to do more. I want to help others who feel like I did that night. Keanu's reply came quickly. I was hoping you'd say that. Let's build something. 2 months later, an announcement quietly appeared online. No press conference, no bold marketing, just a website with a short video. In it, Anna and Keanu sat side by side on a simple bench. Anna looked into the camera and said, We don't want to be the loudest voices. We want to be the safest ones. Keanu added, This isn't a foundation about celebrities. It's about humans and healing. They called it the Breathing Room, a non-profit project to fund mental health resources, safe spaces, and anonymous therapy access for people dealing with anxiety, panic, and silent suffering. The name came from Anna's own words. Sometimes all we need is a place to breathe. They expected slow growth. But within 48 hours, the site crashed from the traffic. Within a week, people from over 30 countries had donated or signed up. A young mother in India, a soldier in Ukraine, a high school student in Brazil. All writing the same thing. I found my breathing room. Anna began hosting quiet, intimate online talks, not like interviews, more like warm conversations. She would open each one by saying, "Hi, I'm Anna. I've had panic attacks, and I'm still healing." Those simple words, said by someone people once saw as untouchable, broke barriers. People cried. People opened up. One woman from Italy whispered through tears, "My husband used to tell me I was crazy. Now I know I'm not. I'm just carrying pain I didn't cause." Anna didn't interrupt. She just nodded slowly and said, "You're not alone." And that became the heart of the project. You're not alone. Meanwhile, Keanu worked behind the scenes. He met with quiet donors, reached out to therapists and trauma experts, and designed small retreats where people could come, unplug, and simply exist without judgment. He never asked for credit. At one gathering, someone asked him, "Why do you do all this?" He replied, "Because when I was younger, I didn't have a breathing room. I want to build one for others." The world took notice, but in a new way. This wasn't about trending headlines or magazine covers. This was something deeper. Real people, real stories, slowly changing the way we talk about mental health. Schools started showing Anna's talks. In classrooms, companies began offering breathing breaks instead of just coffee breaks. Australia's national radio featured the breathing room in a segment titled, "When Stars Light the Way in Silence." And then something unexpected happened. Anna received a handwritten invitation. It was from a small girl named Layla. She wrote, "Dear Anna, I saw your video. I'm 10 years old. I have something like panic, too. Sometimes I hide in the bathroom at school because I'm scared. But my teacher showed me your video and now I draw pictures instead. I made one for you. Will you come to my school and see it?" Attached was a child's drawing. It showed Anna standing on a stage, eyes wide, and a man with kind eyes holding her hand. The caption written in a child's handwriting read, "This is the moment she got strong." Anna flew out the next week. No press, no cameras, just her, a small backpack, and a promise to a child. She walked into the school classroom, and when Layla saw her, she dropped her crayon and burst into happy tears. "You came!" she shouted. Anna knelt beside her. "Of course I did." Layla took her hand and whispered, "Sometimes when I'm scared, I think about you." Anna held her tighter and whispered back, "Me too." Meanwhile, Keanu watched from afar. He never joined her visits unless asked. He believed some things needed to be hers alone. He supported in quiet ways, sending flowers to the schools, writing small notes to the teachers, checking in after every trip. But one day, Anna called and said, "I want you there next time." "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said, "because this time, it's for both of us." They visited a trauma shelter for young girls. One by one, the girls sat in a circle. Some were shy, others nervous, but when Keanu spoke, something softened. "I'm not here because I have answers," he said. "I'm here because I've been through things that made me quiet. And I want you to know, quiet doesn't mean broken." A girl named Jess raised her hand and said, "What if we never stop being scared?" Anna answered, "Then we walk forward anyway, with shaking hands, and we let someone hold them if we need to." Keanu added, "Being scared doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're still trying." The girls listened like their hearts were wide open, and that night, one of them asked for a candle to be lit in her mother's memory. They all sat together in the dark room, Anna, Keanu, the girls, watching the small flame flicker, and no one said a word. because in that silence, healing was happening. The moment they all remembered, the sun was setting as Anna and Keanu walked out of the trauma shelter. The sky looked like it had been painted in strokes of orange and gold, soft clouds drifting slowly across the fading blue. They didn't say much at first. Both of them were quiet, but it wasn't the kind of silence that needed to be filled. It was the kind of silence that meant something had shifted. Again. Anna looked up and said softly, "I feel like every time we sit in those rooms, something inside me breaks, but it breaks open." Keanu nodded. "Sometimes we have to break open so we can let the light in." They stood there together, watching a few of the girls wave goodbye from the window. And in that small moment, Anna realized something she hadn't noticed until now. The fear that used to sit heavy on her chest wasn't there anymore. Not like before. It hadn't disappeared overnight, but it had changed. It had softened. It had become her teacher months past. The breathing room expanded faster than anyone expected. What started as a quiet project turned into a global movement. Schools in Africa asked for workshops. Women's shelters in Mexico reached out for training. Even a few prisons requested guided mental health support from the team. Anna traveled more than ever, but for the first time in her life, she wasn't traveling for roles. She was traveling to be present, to listen, to share, to show up for those who had once felt invisible, just like she had on that stage. One day, Anna received a message from the Academy, the same organization that had hosted the award show months. They wanted to honor the breathing room at a private gathering. Not a glamorous event, just a night of quiet recognition. A new award had been created, something they called the Human Light Honor, given not for performance, but for presence. Anna didn't want to go alone, so she called Keanu. "You have to be there," she said. He chuckled lightly. "Are you sure? I might just stand quietly in the back." "Then I'll stand in the back with you," she replied. "But we started this together. We show up together." The hall was dimly lit, a soft blue glow washing over the crowd. There were no flashing cameras, no screaming fans. Just a room full of people who understood pain, healing, and the quiet strength of kindness. When Anna and Keanu stepped onto the small stage, the audience stood, not in thunderous applause, but in still, respectful admiration. Anna took a breath. She didn't shake. She didn't freeze. She smiled. And then she began. "A year ago, I stood on a very different stage. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. And I thought I had ruined the biggest moment of my life." The room listened quietly. But that moment didn't break me. It revealed something I had buried for too long. The fear, the pressure, the weight of being perfect. It had been hiding in me for years, and when it came to the surface, I was lucky. She turned and looked at Keanu. "I was lucky someone reminded me that pain doesn't make us weak. That being vulnerable can be one of the bravest things a person can do." She paused, her voice soft but clear. "Since then, I've stood in classrooms, shelters, hospitals, prisons, and I've learned that the greatest thing you can do for another person is not to fix them, but to sit beside them while they heal." The room was still, and then Keanu stepped forward. He didn't take the microphone. He simply stood beside Anna, placed his hand on her shoulder, and said just one line. "She taught me more than I could ever teach her." They didn't stay long after the event. They slipped out quietly through the side door, back into the night air. Anna laughed softly. "I think that's the first award I've ever received where I wasn't nervous." Keanu smiled. "Because it wasn't about proving anything," she nodded. "Just about being real." In the following months, the breathing room added local chapters in over 20 cities. They launched an app that provided grounding exercises, crisis chat rooms, and calming audio from voices around the world, including Anna's and Keanu's. The app's most played recording was Anna's soft voice saying, "You are safe, you are seen, and you are not alone." On the 1-year anniversary of that night, when Anna froze on stage and Keanu walked beside her, they returned to that very same theater. It was empty this time. No lights, no audience, just them. They stood, together on the exact spot where it all began. Anna looked around slowly. "It's so small," she whispered, "but it felt so big that night." "Pain always feels bigger when you're alone," Keanu said. She turned to him. "And now?" He smiled. "Now, you're not alone." She stepped forward, stood exactly where she had frozen that night and closed her eyes. Then, slowly, she raised the microphone. No cameras, no crowd. But with tears in her eyes, she said into the silence, "I can breathe now." Some stories are loud. This one was quiet, but it reached more hearts than any speech ever could, because the world didn't remember the fall. It remembered the hand that reached out. It remembered the breath that returned. It remembered the strength of two people who turned pain into purpose. And most of all, it remembered the truth. Sometimes, the softest moments are the ones that echo the loudest.